When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fanfiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future videos and updates that I do post on my community tab frequently. If you want to get access to any of my early content, check out my Discord. This is The Change of Fate, Part 1. Short disclaimer. This part might be shorter than my average by how much I'm not entirely sure. It might be a full part, I'm not really sure, so it does let you guys know if it's a shorter part, just in case. Alright, now let's continue where we last left off in our story. Yuri slightly tightened her grip on the handle of the rusty sword as the first goblin charged forward towards Yuri. As she blocked the goblin attempts to slash her with the axe. The axe swung that Yuri blocked made her slightly off balance as she rolled to the side and dodged some more of the arrows from the crossbows. The goblins are already upon her, as Yuri swung her sword in an upward slash, making contact with one of the one-handed axes that the goblin was wielding, making the goblin unbalanced. In that brief opening, Yuri activated her sword slash skill, as she cut right through the goblin in half with her sword, as a sword slash beam of energy shot forward, cutting down two goblins that were wielding melee weapons and shields, only leaving the goblin archers alive. Yuri did not wait. She charged forward while dodging around the arrows as she shot off a fireball, as Yuri was about to use the fireball, as a fireball was shot out of the palm of her hand. As the fireball flew forward, flying through the sky, as it made contact with the remaining goblins. Because Yuri cast three more fireballs, with the extra amount of damage that her bone bracelet grants her, boosts her magic power or attack, she managed to kill the remaining level 0 goblins, as a notification popped up on her status window, informing Yuri that her first task was completed, as she was awarded 6 experience points, nowhere near getting enough experience points to level up to level 1, but she's making progress. As Yuri noticed all of the dead bodies of the goblins begin to decay away, leaving only the monster core, as she immediately begins to collect all the goblin monster cores. With the immediate danger taken care of, now she can breathe easy, as she put the monster cores in her inventory. Yuri is breathing heavy. Holy shit, I won. Now where the fuck am I? And there's plenty of sunlight left. I should probably find a suitable place for shelter. I don't want to get stuck out here during the night. God knows what comes out. Especially how, somehow, I got involved with some sort of twisted RPG fantasy world. Fucking bullshit, what it is. Might as well just pick a direction and begin to walk. That's what Yuri did. She picked a random direction on the other side of the clearing. As she entered the woods, several hours has passed. As all Yuri could see is forest, or woods, and more woods. Occasionally, she could hear birds chirping throughout the woods, until she came across an old cabin that seems to be abandoned. Yuri had no trouble walking in and gaining entry to the cabin. The cabin wasn't very big, quite small. It was a singular room, fireplace, small kitchen, and a bed. Yuri begins to look around the cabin to find any extra chopped wood. All she found was a wood chopping axe. Yuri had no problem picking the axe up and equipping it. And she stepped outside the cabin, and she found a small tree that's not too far away from the cabin. As she begins to chop down the tree, she found chopping down the small tree to be quite easy with her current strength. After chopping up and picking up the necessary wood pieces, she begins to carry them back to the cabin. It took her a couple trips, but she eventually got all the wood back to the cabin. Like I said, it took her several trips, but she finally gathered all of the spare wood from the chopped down tree and started to chop them up outside the cabin to smaller pieces as she placed them in the fireplace. She couldn't find any matches or lighters, given she's probably in a fantasy world. But she did found some weird glowing red crystals. So she decided to rub scratch against the two glowing crystals, as a spark was created. As she used the red crystals to set the wood on fire. As she put the fire crystals in her inventory, Yuri has no desire to keep the firewood axe, so she put it back where she found it. Now that Yuri has some time to think what she's going to do next, or just her situation in general. Yuri, okay. We were summoned, apparently, to some fantasy world, because I highly doubt goblins were hiding in a nearby forest back on Earth. And apparently I have some sort of leveling up system in this hero system. And the fact that I could create fireballs, it's definitely solid proof. I'm no longer on Earth. What do I do now? I have no idea where I'm at, where I'm going. I don't even know the right direction to the nearest town, city, or village. I know nothing about this world. Clearly, I was summoned with the rest of the students. Hell, I'm not even sure if we were summoned together. They could have found themselves in similar situations, scattered. I have no proof to say otherwise. I also need to find Lulu. With her, at least I know she has my back. Hey, you useless hero system. Is it possible to contact other hero candidates? Cannot complete action. Need user ID info. Of course, nothing can be easy. I'm going to have to come in contact with them first, before I could contact them with long range. According to the status menu, there's clearly a way to contact other hero candidates. It seems like the only method through the system is through message, though. That's just dandy. And she deactivated her status window. I should go looking around the kitchen to find anything, any type of food. If there's nothing here, then I'm going to have to go hunting. When Yuri walked out of... Once Yuri looked around, finding no food whatsoever. As Yuri walked out of the cabin, once again, as she saw a couple large rabbits. The moment the rabbits saw Yuri, it immediately burst into speed and started to bounce off of the tree trunks as springboards, jumping from tree trunk to tree trunk, getting out of the area fast. Yuri was quite surprised by the large rabbit's speed. System, can you identify those rabbits? As the status window appeared, showing a small description of the rabbits. It's one of the most docile of their species, of the rabbit species on the world. It's not hostile, but it does have incredible speed. Despite the monstrous speed, their meat is quite a delicacy. Yuri swiped her hand to the side as the status window disappeared. Yuri searched the woods to locate more of the same type of rabbits. She eventually did found a small group of them, as there was a many try and error to hunt them down. Many attempts were failures, but eventually she started to get creative in using her skills to actually kill a few of them in the field. So these rabbits are not monsters, so they don't drop any monster core. But Yuri did get a notification informing her she got new items in her inventory. As Yuri immediately looked through the inventory, and she sees several rabbit meat in her inventory along with rabbit pelt. She doesn't know how, but apparently the system automatically separates the meat and organs from the rest of the useful items from the rabbit corpse. But there's no signs of the organs. Somehow the system destroys them, only leaving all the useful meat. She's not complaining. The last thing she needs is to start gutting rabbits. She wouldn't even know where to start to do something like that. She's always lived in the city. The moment she got back to the cabin, she began to prep the kitchen and began to cook the rabbit meat. She only took out much she needs for one meal. As she lit up the stove with the fire crystal. Like I said, Yuri only cooked what she was going to eat. She is uncertain if the food would go bad in her inventory. Yuri begins to eat and check her status. As she simply said status as a status window appeared. As she begins to look through it look through everything more thoroughly to get a better idea of this whole system and what it does. Fascinating. According to this, my inventory will keep the food good for a much longer period of time compared to food that's outside of my inventory. And she pulled out 2 of the pelts of the large rabbits. It was big enough that she could use as a blanket, and the other rabbit pelt will be used as a pillow as she lay down on the bed in the cabin as the night begins to fall. Yuri could hear the crickets from outside as several wolf howls could be heard from outside as well. But Yuri completely ignored the outside noises and closed her eyes as she went to sleep. Yuri woke up in the morning and began to return everything back to her inventory. Returning the 2 rabbit pelts that she used as a blanket and a pillow, and the extra spare wood just in case she has to make a campfire. As Yuri made sure to grab all the fire crystals alongside with a round pan that is used to cook food on the campfire. With everything she needed in her inventory, she made sure the fireplace was no longer lit and left the cabin to see if she could find a town or a city. She would even be satisfied with a small village. It's a good thing this fancy little system has a map. As a map appeared in front of her through the status window, showing the map is mostly undiscovered, as the whole map is all blank, and the only filled out parts is where she's been. Of course, the map hasn't been fully filled out yet, so they figured. This thing is no help. I'm not even sure I'm walking in the right direction. With a wave of her hand, the status board window disappeared. Yuri knows all the crows looking down upon her as they're standing on top of the branches of the trees. As she noticed, the trees started, the more further she walked into the woods, the more that the woods changed drastically as she's passing through several dead trees, as it was dead quiet, giving a very ominous feeling for Yuri, as crow-looking monsters up on the tree branches are just staring down upon her, like they're waiting for something. But despite the place looking very ominous, Yuri pushed forward. She noticed the trees that she's walking past get more deader as she steps forward, compared to the rest of the trees of the woods thriving with life. And the strange-looking crows only increase in number. But despite this place looking very ominous, Yuri pushed forward. None of the trees that she's walking past look more dead compared to the other trees that were thriving with life. Strange-looking crows only increase. Oh, I completely read that twice. My apologies. With so many dead trees, Yuri could see something in the distance. It was too far away to tell what it was, but it was clearly a large structure. The closer she got to the structure in the distance, the more the weather starts to change. Wind started to pick up as thunder and lightning started to erupt. Yuri had to immediately stop her movements as several human-sized coffins burst through the ground. As a notification popped up on her status window. Acquired new task, eliminate level 1 skeletons. The moment Yuri read that last line of text, skeleton warriors burst out of the coffins God damn it. As Yuri got ready for another conflict, it was already irritated enough with the goblins. Now skeletons. What next? A fire-breathing dragon? On cue, a skeleton dragon began to fly into the sky above them. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I had to open my fucking big mouth. As the skeleton warriors immediately launched forward, Yuri had to dodge out of the way of the first wave of attacks from the skeleton warriors, as Yuri had to duck under a shield bash. After ducking under their shield bash, she went into her roll. The moment she went into her roll, a sword hit the ground where she once stood. But once she got out of roll, she went into a slide. But before she could do anything else, Yuri was surprised as one of the skeleton warriors slammed her with his shield, with a shield bash, as Yuri was sent flying into one of the dead trees in the woods, hitting the hard surface of the dead tree as Yuri coughed up spit, as her HP was drained slightly from the sword bash and the contact from hitting the tree, giving her double damage. The skeleton warriors was already in motion, in mid-swing, charging downwards towards Yuri. Yuri panicked and shot a fireball out of the palm of her hand at the skeleton. When the fireball hit, Yuri's eyes widened as she saw the skeleton receives heavy damage. Yuri is still leaning against the tree, as she has a massive grin on her face. I see, so your weakness against fire. Perfect. As Yuri got up to her feet and immediately shoot out another fireball. A few skeleton warriors weren't fast enough, as they were completely destroyed, as Yuri kept shooting off fireball in rapid succession. The skeletons that weren't turned into dust was already getting their shields ready, as the skeletons that were hit with the fireball began to turn into ash, leaving only their monster cores. As Yuri shot off another wave of fireballs, only for the remaining skeleton warriors to use their shield to tank the fireballs, Yuri noticed they blocked her spell, but despite them blocking her spell, she could see their HP is slowly draining, nevertheless. It might be to a lesser degree, but she's making progress. There's only 2 remaining skeletons, warriors, to deal with, as a flying skeleton dragon haven't took notice of her yet. So she doesn't want to press her luck, considering her luck has already been pretty bad of late. Yuri uses speed dash to cut the distance, to get nice and close, as Yuri used one of the skeleton's shield as a springboard to leap in the middle of the air above them. As she did a slight backflip, her palms aiming downwards towards the skeletons, as she immediately unleashed an assault of double casting fireballs with both her hands in rapid succession downwards upon the skeletons. Once her assault was finished, Yuri landed with a skid to a stop. The 2 remaining skeletons that she attacked began to turn to ash, only leaving the monster core, as she quickly gathered up all the monster cores and put in her inventory. She took a look of how far she is until she levels up. as she knows her experience bumped up quite a bit. According to the number of experience points I gained from that little battle, those skeletons gave me 10 experience points per each kill. If I remember right, there were 4 skeletons I defeated. That means I earned 40 experience points from that entire battle. Don't remember killing the 4th one. Must have got caught up in one of my earlier fireball assaults. And the amount of HP took a hit. I have little over half of my mana pool still left, according to my status window. And a good chunk of health missing. Yuri finally noticed the large shadow she's standing on. As she looked up to grit her teeth. As she sees the skeleton dragon finally took notice of her, Yuri immediately activated her speed dash to get out of the way of the diving skeleton dragon. The moment Yuri used her speed dash, that's when the skeleton dragon dived downwards and pierced the ground with his bone-like claws, and begin to ascend upwards to take another pass at Yuri. While Yuri was running, the skeleton dragon was shooting blue fire out of his mouth, trying to hit Yuri. As Yuri continuously to use her speed dash repeatedly, draining her stamina, Yuri spotted a cave that wasn't too far away from the location. Yuri looked behind her and shot out a fireball at the incoming skeleton dragon in the face, blinding it for a few seconds. As she dashed towards the direction of the cave, running through the Deadwoods, as she dove right into the cave and into a roll, as she leaned against the cave wall near the entrance, as she could hear the skeleton dragon roaring in anger, unleashing its fire in random directions, trying to flush out its prey. That Yuri is at immediate danger. She'd look around the cave. It's not very big, but it's a nice place to hold up for now. She needs to recover anyway, so she decided to take what she needed out of her inventory to make a campfire inside the cave. The skeleton dragon has started to move on, so she doesn't have to worry about the dragon spotting the fire coming from the cave. And she took while starting the fire, she took all the items that she needed and started to form a campfire using the rocks as the basis of the campfire, small campfire, and start to cook some of the uncooked rabbit meat that was in her inventory. Once the food was ready, she begins to eat, and she noticed the food was slightly healing her HP and MP, but not by a large amount. She recovered more MP. MP. Not really more, but it was filling up faster than the HP. Of course, Yuri didn't really lose that much HP. But after eating, she eventually had her status at 100% HP and MP. She has nothing to clean the small camping pan, so she returned it back to her inventory. She'll clean it later. She has no source of water. Not having access to water is troubling for her, but she can't do anything about it now. She just has to move forward. Only place that would have any slight of shelter would be that large structure in the distance. We're clearly still in these woods. But how large these woods are, I don't even know. There's only one way to find out. Even though these woods are pretty much dead. As she peeked her head out of the cave, noticed the close was clear. And she heard the dragon in the distance. This is the perfect time to leave the hiding spot until she heard sounds of rushing water. Now she was confused because there's shouldn't be any water in here. It's a small cave. Yuri noticed when she got to a certain part of the cave, the wall began to shift and morph into a wooden door. Yuri was a bit irritated with everything, so she opened the door, throwing caution out of the wind, and that led downstairs. As she walked downstairs, down the stone steps, leading to some sort of underground cabin filled with fresh water veins that's going through all different directions as a waterfall is raging down there. She knows a few crates laying around. She went through them. Most of the stuff was completely useless. But she did found something that was useful enough. Some sort of water container, small. She put the water container in her inventory. She looked through the description of the item. It's a small travel-sized magical water container that has magical runes that keeps all the liquid inside this small water container to be cold at all times. The water looked fresh to her, so she's uncertain if the water's safe to drink or not. But she had no choice. There's only one way to find out. So she filled up the water container, and filled up with water. Like the description, it kept all the water instantly cold. As she took a drink, as she's never tasted water like this before. Water this quality is usually pretty pricey. It's not the type of water a city girl would drink on the daily. Pure water like this is extremely expensive. So she's quite enjoying herself. After getting her fill and refilling the water container, she put it back in her inventory and went back up the stone steps to leave the cave. And she started to travel through the Deadwoods, travel towards the structure in the distance. She got a lot more closer now, as she could identify what sort of building it is, as she saw a large black tower. It seems like the storm is increasing in that area. And she found there was no rain. There was just lightning and thunder continuously going off around the tower. It made the tower look even more ominous, and the glowing green energy that looks like made of tortured souls is definitely not a good sign. As she could see outlines of faces with terrifying expressions on their face of pure horror, swirling around the green energy that's shooting out up into the sky. The status system window appeared once again with a new task. Make it to the tower, in the distance alive. Time limit, duration 30 minutes. If you fail to complete this task in the given time frame, you will receive heavy penalties. But if you manage to complete this task in the time frame listed down below, you will be gifted with rewards. What are these rewards? Random rewards will be gifted to the hero candidate upon completion. She couldn't think on it any further as the countdown started to begin. As she heard roars of the dragon, the sounds more like screeches than anything else, getting closer to her direction. That's flying in her, basically flying towards her direction. Yuri immediately ran forward as more coffins burst through the ground ahead of her, and she blasted them with fireballs as she ran past them, not bothering to pick up the monster cores once they were destroyed by her fireballs. She has a long way to go. She has to choose her targets very wisely. She can't just attack and kill all of them. She doesn't have that much time, and that dragon is on her tail. And the countdown is still going down. She ran and used her speed dash while dodging around several other skeletons, then killing the ones that could be an easy kill. Not even stopping her momentum, gaining more experience as she goes. As she finally made it to the tower, only 10 seconds to spare, but the time limit kept going down. As she immediately kicked the doors open and burst through the tower. As she managed to enter the tower in 1 second to spare, as a notification window appeared on her status window in text format. Congratulations, task was completed. Hero candidate will be receiving rewards immediately. Before she could look through her inventory, another status window appeared. Beginning secret quest, conquer the Necromancer Tower. Time limit, duration, 9 days. Secret quests will begin immediately. Hold the fuck up. I never agreed to such shit like this. More text appeared. The moment you entered the Necromancer Tower, the quest was automatically accepted. You fucking little shit, you're trying to get me killed. As the system was quiet, and I have no doubt, if I don't do this quest in a time limit, there'll definitely be penalties. And she was right. As she started to look at the quest a little more, but she heard something behind her as she turned around to see the door vanish, leaving only a wall. Great. There's definitely no way out now. I guess I'm gonna have to move forward. There's only one way I can do this. And conquering this tower seems like my only option. By the looks of the interior of the tower, the ground floor of the tower looks a lot more larger. A lot more larger and vast. There's doors scattered all around on the ground floor. In truth, the tower itself is a dungeon. Each dungeon in the world has its own separate dimension, making the dungeons a whole lot bigger and diverse of different type of monsters occupy it. Each dungeon, depending on the dungeon boss, will depend on what type of monsters that will fill the dungeon. And each dungeon, when they're completed, will go through a cooldown period and reset. And the tower itself was quite large from the outside, so Yuri's not entirely sure how many floors that this tower has, but she has no choice. And she took a torch that was on the side of the wall for extra light, and she made her way down the narrow hallways of the tower. She did take a closer look at her quest details in her status window that she minimized for convenience, the quest title, as it said, is a secret quest that only activate when a player character approaches a certain location, but any other details are very vague. And part of the title of the quest is blurry, like she can't read it. Like there's something more to this quest, just conquering the tower and defeating the necromancer. She's starting to have doubts about this hero system, and she's clearly suspicious, but for now, she has no choice but to continue. Yuri decided to check out the first door she saw. As she stepped inside, as it had a singular skeleton warrior, wearing old, ruined, ancient armor, carrying a sword in a shield, guarding a singular wooden chest. As the door behind Yuri was involved into the magical barrier, trapping her inside, leaving Yuri no choice but to fight. That's where we're going to stop it. I'll catch you guys in the next part.